Hey again, it's Rick from pseudosamurai.com, and today we're working on level transitions. So where I left off last time, we had our levels and we could change between levels, but now what we're going to work on is transitioning, so having some animation or controlling sort of the flow of how our levels change. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so first thing we need to do is just make a new class. Okay, and this is going to be our transition manager. Okay, and we'll just finish that. Okay, and what this is going to do is it's going to kind of take place of our level manager here. Okay, it's going to do a lot of the job of the level manager, but it's going to add the transition effects as well. Okay, so first thing in here is we need to accept some arguments here. So first thing we need is our citrus instance. So citrus instance, and that's going to be of type Starling citrus engine. There we go. Okay, next up we need the superclass of our generic level, right? So we're going to want some of the information that we do in our level manager, and in the level manager we send our game level, right? Well, we want that as well. Okay, so we can just call that what are we going to call it? Level super, and that's just going to be of a type class. All right, and then let's also take in the an array of our game levels, or allow the person who's using this to send in the game levels. So we'll just do game levels. So when writing classes, usually they're for, or at least in my experience, they're usually just for me, so I know what's going on. But when you work with groups of people, or if you wanted to create a class to release to the public, a couple things you need to think about is how your class will get used. Okay, so one of the kind of habits is I use sort of very descriptive names in the constructor here for code hinting purposes. So, you know, if I come over here and let's say I'm going to make a manager equal to new transition manager. So right here, when I get my code hinting, I can see sort of what this class is looking for. So descriptive names are helpful in that case. Internally in the class, I'm not as descriptive, but when I'm writing the constructor, I tend to be kind of descriptive there. So just kind of a note there. One thing I want is I want this class to be singleton, and what that means is I only want one of it ever. Right, so I wouldn't want to allow the user to make multiple instances of this class. Okay, so we're going to try and make it so that they can only have one instance of this class. Okay, so first I'm going to set up a private static variable and just call it instance, and it's going to be of type transition manager right here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if an instance already exists, right? So instance, then we're going to throw a new error, and we'll just say singleton whoops, use blah method. Okay, so basically if someone tries to instantiate a new transition manager, I'm having trouble today. I have trouble every day. Anyway, if someone tries to instantiate a new transition manager and there's already one in the class, it's going to say no, you can't do that. It's going to output this message. Okay, so and then what we want to do is instance equals this. Okay, so when it's created, if there isn't an instance already, it makes this the instance, and then if you try and create it again, it says you can't do that, basically. With that, we also need a public static function called getInstance, and this will return a transition manager, and we just want to return this, or I'm sorry, instance. Okay, so that just kind of makes sure that there's only one of these at any given time. Okay, all right, so now that we have that set up, okay, what we're going to have is we're going to have CE going to be our citrus engine, right? So citrus instance. Okay, and we'll create a new one of those. Oops, get stuck in a loop there. Next, what we're going to want is an instance variable for our super class. So I'm just going to call this level super, and that will be level super. Again, make that just like that, and then game levels will be levels. Okay, and that's type array, and good. All right, so we have our instance variables there, and so next thing we need to do is just set up a level manager for our game there. So we'll just have level manager, and that'll be new CE, or I'm sorry, we'll get a reference to the level manager that's on our initial our citrus engine here, right? So just CE, can't be capital there, level manager, right? Then what we want to, let's make that an instance variable, good, and there'll be type level manager, right? So just basically we're going to copy this stuff here. Okay, so I'll just copy that, bring it over here, and okay, so the first line, we want the generic version of our game class. Well, we already passed that in. It's called level super right here, right? So we can just use that variable. Doesn't really matter. Okay. We're still going to want to have the listener, and we're going to want to set up our levels, right? But the levels got passed in right up here, so we don't need to do it that way. We can just say game levels. like that. Okay, great. So I feel like you know, it's kind of a lot of setup code for the level manager. It'll actually be a little easier to set it up with the transition manager. Okay, so now what we need is a method here, the onChange method. Okay. And we'll just leave that blank for now. So let's take a look. Where are we? Okay. One of the things I feel is missing from the level manager is an add level method. You know, we don't really need to add it for this project, but if I wanted to, I can add an add level here. You know, it would look something like we'll just call it add level, and then we want level class, that's of type class, and level path, and that's a string, right? So if we look at how we add the levels, right, we have our level class and the path of the level, so the string. So this could come in handy if I wanted to add new levels, or you know, just kind of more options to control the flow of how the levels work, right? And then all I would do here is just game levels dot push, and then we can do our level class and our level path. Again, I use description or descriptive names here because this would be used outside of this class, right? So you push that in, and then I could just say level manager dot levels is equal to game levels, and that way you know, I can add levels that way, or you know, if I want to add one level at a time from outside the class, whatever, you know, just, you know, if you wanted to dynamically create, say, the flow of your levels, right, from a pool of levels you have, you could use a random function to add levels, or so it just creates flexibility. So that's something I felt was missing from the level manager. So I added one here, even though I'm not going to use it at all. That's kind of what it would look like. Okay, so let's move on. Next, what we want is a public function go to level. Okay, and this will take the place of our level manager go to level, right? And so what we want to pass here is level, which would be a uint, and then we'll have an optional argument called transition, and that will be an object. This it won't return anything. Okay, and so you know, if someone wants to go to a level, they can say transition manager go to level 2 and nothing else, and it'll just go to level 2. But if you want to transition, let's say we want it to fade from the current level to level 2 or whatever, you have the option to add this object. Okay, so it'll make more sense in a second. Also, actually, I'm going to make both of these optional, right? So if you just say go to level and leave it blank, it'll just go to the first level, the 0 level, essentially, right? So first thing is I want to see if there is a transition, right? What should we do? Okay, so So first thing is I just want to set a flag, transition to true. Right, and this just lets me know if I need to do the transition or not. Okay, and then I want a trans object to be equal to transition right there. Right, and we'll do another instance variable up there. Okay, and then what we're going to do is say manager dot go to level, right? And then we just want to pass in the level, just like that. And then I'm going to set, I spelled that right. That's incredible. I never spell anything right. Current level to level, right? So I just want to keep track of the index of what level we are. Okay. In fact, we can probably change that to level index. That's probably a little bit more descriptive. Like that, and then yet again another instance variable. Okay, so that's all I need in my go-to level. Okay, but we're listening for a change. So, you know, when this fires, or when the level gets loaded, it'll come over here to on change. So what's going to happen in this function? Okay, so this is where we're going to set up our transition and get everything kind of connected. So first thing I want to do is make sure that I'm accepting the parameter from the onChange event. It sends me the level, and I'm just going to cast this to an object. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is add my my signal listener, NextLevel, right? And then we'll call a function called NextLevel. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm listening for that signal, and we were using that last time. So right here we have, I'm looking at level 1. We have NextLevel.dispatch, the level we want, right? Okay, so we're just going to continue to use that. Okay. Then what I want to do is set the current level right here in my level index. I want to set that on my level. So this level is aware of what level it is. Okay, and that'll come into play later. But basically for right now, all I have to do is come up to my game level here. And let's add a public variable level index, right? And that'll be uint, an unsigned integer. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my level as we want our level super, right? And then set the level index equal to level index. Okay. So now it knows what level it is. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to test. So CE state. So we're going to see if there is a state already. Okay. If there is, we're going to set the future state class or level rather to our level as a level super. Okay. So the first time you run it, there won't be a state on the Citrus engine. Okay. But after that, it will have a state. So what we and this is built into the Citrus engine is they have the future state, right? So if there is a level, we're going to set that to future state. Otherwise, we're going to set it as the level. So CE dot state, right, is equal to level as level super. Okay. All right, so next what we're going to do is if trans, right? So if we're going to do a transition, and actually we want to make sure there's a future state there too. So CE dot future state. Sorry, something's in my throat. So we want to make sure we have a future state and we're going to transition. Then what we're going to do is we're going to call a function called transition levels. Okay. And to this, what we need to pass is the two states, basically. So CE dot state. And then we want to make sure we cast it as a Starling state. Okay. And then CE dot future state as Starling state. Okay. So we're going to pass those to our transition, and that's going to return a an ease tween, right? So we're going to listen for the on complete. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to call another function called after trans, and we want to send a variable, right? So trans object. So this will make more sense once we start building these functions out. Okay. All right. So so we're going to call that, and then when it's done, we're going to call another function. And then before we leave here, though, we want to turn off that flag, trans false, and then we'll get rid of this object as well, okay? Because we don't want any leftover object, if that makes any sense. So the trans object equal to null. Okay. All right, good. So let's make our transition level next. All right. So this is going to be a private function. Called, what do I call it? You know what? Transition levels is way too long for typing, so we're going to change it to trans levels because it's way easier to understand. All right. Okay, and so this takes in a state 1, and that's of Starling state, right? And state 2 will be of Starling state. All right, and we're going to return an ease tween, just like so. Whoops. Okay. And so in here, we're going to look at our transition object and see. So in here we could set up multiple transitions if we wanted. Okay, so I'm just going to have two. I'm going to have a fade transition and I'll have a sliding transition just to, you know, showcase kind of what you can do. And I mean, obviously there are different ways to set this up, but I'm just going to use a switch function, and I'm going to switch my fade I'm sorry, trans object dot type. Okay, and this is just like a generic object that we can pass in whatever information we want. So I'm just making up this type here. I just made it up, and then later I can use it, you know, in my when I call this function. So anyway, I'll stop babbling. So case and then fade, right? So this will be our fade one. What we're going to do is return, whoops, ease state 1, right, 2, then we'll use that trans object again, and this time we'll have time, so how long it'll take, and then we want to affect the alpha property down to 0. Okay. Cool. So if it's a fade, it's pretty easy, and then we'll have a break in here. Okay. So case, we'll do case slide, and this one's a little more complicated. Okay. So we could slide multiple ways, but you know, I could slide it down and up and left and right. For right now, we'll just slide it one way, but for kind of future proofing, right, I'm gonna attach a direction property to which way I slide, even though I'm only gonna do one slide direction. So what I'm gonna do is see which direction to go. So under equals, let's go to the right. Right. Okay. So okay, I'll just create a little space down here. All right. So if we're going to the right, first thing we want to do is state 2.x. We want to put the future state kind of at the end of the current state. So what we're going to do is get state 1 as super, right? And game width. Remember, you know, in our level we set this game width, right? Because if I were to use width, it'd actually be wider than sort of the window that I'm using, right? So I'm just going to use this game width property. And then what I want to do, so, you know, let's say we're in level 1, that's 3,000, but if our hero is partway through the level, we don't want to attach the other one at 3,000. We want to attach it a little bit closer, kind of the difference of the level. So what we'll do is subtract, and this isn't a perfect solution really, but it was kind of the best one I could come up with. I'm going to get the hero.x position. So the further in the hero is, one thing I need to do is make sure my hero is public. So we'll go change him to public, and we'll just move him up. There we go. So, you know, the further along the hero moves in the level, the smaller the game width will get, which means it'll attach the state 2 closer to the edge of state 1, essentially. Okay. So next, we'll make an ease from state 2 is going to go to and then we want the time again, so trans object dot time, and then we want to affect the x property to 0. Okay, so what's happening is it's sliding in from the right hand side. It's going to slide over, hopefully, if I'm doing this right. Okay, and then we're going to return another ease, and this is our state 1. And what we're going to do is go to, and then we're going to use that trans object.time again, and we want to affect the x value, and basically we're going to move this all the way to the left, right? So x is going to be negative state dot width, right? And I'm using the actual width because if I were to use the game width, there would be like a little extra on the side, or there could be, you know, if I had walls that go further out, if that makes any sense. And then also another thing to think about is the fall sensor underneath the level is wider than the level. So anyway, I just want to move it over. Okay, and this is going to cause a little bit of a weird transition, but it should be okay. Okay, so we'll break that. Okay, it's always good to have a default case. If you could spell default, I find it quite difficult. And we'll just trace out error. Oh wait, it's not case, it's just default. That's what it's looking weird. Default error recognize transition type. Okay, so if you know, we don't recognize the transition type, we'll just trace out real quick. And I still have to return an ease. Hopefully, you know, these eases get caught first, but if, you know, if we go all the way through, I still need to return something. So we'll just have a return, and I'll copy this this ease, only we're going to use the, like, we're going to transition instantly. We're just going to make it disappear, essentially. Okay, good. State 1. There we go. So that's my level transition. Okay. Next up, I'm going to do this next level. Right. So private function next level, and to it we're going to accept the index, the level index, and we're also going to accept a transition object. Right, so when, let's say on level 1 here, I call this this dispatch, I can also add a transition object. That way, you know, if I want to transition or don't, I can change that. Okay, so transition object is null. Won't return anything. Okay. And then all this is go to level. So this is just going to call our go to level up here, and we'll pass in I and transition. Okay. Good. Cool. What do we need now? Oh, we need the after transition, right? So after the transition finishes, what's going to happen? Well, the reason I have this, because we don't strictly need it, really. But the reason I wanted to put it is I want to affect my hero. I want him to fade in or fade out when he jumps through the portal. Okay, so we're going to take care of that. So, private function after trans, right? And we're going to accept a time, the amount of time I want for the fade, essentially. Okay, so that is just going to be an int. And we're not going to return anything. Trying to bump the microphone here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is set the current state to the future state, right? So that kind of finishes the transition. And then if there's a time, so I want this to be optional. So if I left it blank, I can do undefined. For a while there I had it as null. This will give you a compiler error, right? You can't do ints to null, you have to do undefined. Anyway, so if time, what we're going to do is say ce dot state as super dot, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a function to our game level, which, I mean, this is level super is really just this game level. We're going to add a function there to initialize our hero, to make him kind of fade in and start his particle flaming head and all that. So I'm going to do that and then send the time. Okay. So this trans object up here, I actually want the what do I want? Just a property of the object, and we'll just call it FadeIn. Right, so FadeIn. Okay. Right. So now let's jump over to our game level here and make that hero set up. Okay, so a NetHero. So I'll jump down here after my knit. You know, we'll do it just right here. Scroll up below. So I want this to be a public function. I just called a NetHero, and we're going to accept a variable called time, be an int. And the default will be 0. Not going to return anything. There we go. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to move a couple things from my hero up here, right? So my hero particle really doesn't need to be here, and what else? Oh, the flame right here, right? So let's take this guy. And grab this guy as well. Okay, so this won't start until our hero is generated. Okay, up here, what we're going to do is make our hero invisible. Okay, so we're going to create him, but we're going to make sure that we can't see him yet. Okay, so sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Okay, so we're just going to get the armature that we set up in our dragon. Okay, arm.display as a sprite. And then we want the alpha, right? And we'll just set that to 0. Okay, so he'll be there, but he'll be invisible. Okay, and then what I want to do is disable the controls. Hero dot controls enabled. We'll set that to false. Okay. And all right, good. And actually, the particle system, we can leave that where it was. We just won't start it. So that's fine, right there. Okay, so we can start the particle system and then add it to our hero. Okay, I was looking at the wrong particle system. I'm going to leave the flame up here as well. Okay, so whoops. After that, just like that. What particle system I was thinking of or trying to get was actually this start particle, right? Where the one where he explodes onto the scene. So I'm gonna actually take these out of my levels, right? So delete that, save, and delete that, save, and put it in my game level here, down with my hero. Okay, so now it's making sense. All right, so when the hero, and these can just be variables. Anyway, so when the hero's initialized, that's when I want the little start explosion to happen. Okay, and citrus, right, there we go. And then instead of hero start X and Y, I'm going to put it at hero.x and hero.y. Whoops. Okay, good. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to call a function, FadeIn, which we'll write in a second, and we'll send in the time, and then on complete, we'll do an anonymous function, and this is where I will start the hero. So here, let me close that. All right, so we'll start the hero, and we will enable the controls. Right, so hero.controls enabled equals true. Okay, so basically we're going to wait until the hero fades in completely before we let the player move him around, essentially. Okay, so let's make that fade in right here. So projected function fade in. Right, and we just have time. That's an int. Void. Okay. Oh, actually it's not void. We're going to return an ease-tween. There we go. Okay, and all we're going to do is return hero dot view dot display sprite. Okay. So we want the time for our duration, and then we want to affect the alpha property, and we're going to 1. Right, so he's fading in, and it's going to take as long as we tell it to. Okay, so that makes sense. The other thing we're going to do while I'm here is make a fade out, and this will take a time. Really, I should just copy this. Fade out, going to 0. Okay, so we can have the hero fade in and fade out, right? Perfect. Okay, good. So let's go back to our transition manager here. Okay, so we init our hero after we change states, so he'll fade in. Okay, should make sense. Let's see, what else do we need to do here? Well, let's change our levels around a little bit. Okay, so jump over to level 1. Okay. So what I'm going to do is move fall back onto our our game level here. So I'm going to take that, and here's our fall, right? And actually I kind of took more than I needed, but okay. So on fall, what we're going to do is NextLevel dispatch, and then we're going to dispatch to the level index. Okay, so we know where, so each level knows what level it is. So we're just going to the next level. So this is when you fall off, it'll just take you back to the beginning. Okay, and we're going to transition. So we're going to just create a little object here. And we'll do type slide. Whoops. Slide. Direction go to the right. And time will be 2. And we'll fade in will be 1. Okay, so I create objects, so slide, direction, time, and then fade in. So over here, right, it's going to come down here, it's going to slide, it's going to do all this stuff, and then it returns back up here. Okay, and it calls after trans, and in here is where I send the fade in, right? So it's going to change the state, and then it's going to say, okay, fade the hero in. Boom. All right. All right, so that's just going to be our fall. We'll leave it on the game level. That way we don't need it on these levels here. Right? will always just restart the level when you fall. Okay, so next what we'll do is actually let's add another level. Okay, or I'm sorry, another method. I'm like getting all spacey all of a sudden. So another method here, we'll do a protected function on done. Okay, and this will have level, the uint, and I'll have a trans object, this will be null. Won't return anything. Okay, and what I'm going to do with this level is just do a dispatch. So next level dot dispatch, and we'll send the level, and we'll send the object trans, like that. Okay, and this will kind of be a shortcut in here in our you know, in our levels. All right, so I'm gonna do say fade out. So what I'm gonna do is fade out my hero, right? And I don't want to take too long, so fade him out, and then on complete, we're gonna call that on done function that I just wrote. On done. Then we're going to pass in the level we want to go to. So we just finished level 1, which is actually level 2, the way this is set up. So we'll go back to the first level, and we'll create an object here. And we'll just do type fade, and then time will be 1. Okay, so what's happening is this is going to fade out right here. Our if we go over here to fade out, this fades out our hero, so he disappears. Then when he's done disappearing, we're going to call the on done, right? So down here we call on done, which dispatches this, and then we get our arguments from right here. We have 1 and our object, right? And what that does is dispatch it to our transition manager, right? So it's on change, or I'm sorry, where is it? Not level, it's next level right here. Here we go. So we've got our level and the object, and then just calls this and just kind of goes into our transition manager. Okay, but that just makes it really easy to call our function here. You know, fade out our hero and go through the whole transition. So I'm going to copy this, and we're going to do the same for this one. Boom. Only we don't want to go to, nope, we want to go to level 1 as well. So this is exactly the same. Okay, fantastic. Okay, level 0 is going to be a little different. Okay, so we have different but similar. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this little statement, right? Or not even that. I'm just going to copy you. Come back over here. Okay, so instead of dispatching here, right, we're just going to get rid of the trace as well. Come here. But instead of fade, I think I want to do a slide here. So slide, and we need a direction. So fight, right. what else do we need? We have time, so we'll make it like 2 is fine. And let's do a fade in of just 1. That's probably good. So slide to the right over 2 seconds, and then fade our hero in over 1 second. Looks good to me. So I'll do the same down here. Whoops. And so this one, we hit portal 1, we want to go to level 2, right? And over here, we want to go to level 3. Okay. So, once again, kind of a long tutorial, geez. But let's just kind of quickly go through what's happening here. So I have this transition manager. Oh, we need to come over here and set up our transition manager. So we're not going to need our level manager anymore. And we don't need our on-change listener anymore. Okay. So all we need, okay, is we'll go, well, you know what, after I did all that, I am going to want my levels here. So I think what I'll do is just that's an array. Okay, so I'll get rid of the rest of the stuff and get rid of what have I done? There we go. Okay, good. So I don't need the level manager anymore. What I'm going to do is just make a trans manager, right? And that's a new transition manager right here. Okay, and we want to send in the Citrus engine. That's this. We want the superclass that was game level, right? And then we can pass in the levels that we're going to use. Boom, boom. I'll make a little instance variable real quick. And then all I need to do is say trans manager dot, and we'll go to level, like that. Okay, so we call go to level. So this sets everything up for us. Goes to the first level right here. It's just going to go to the first level. All right, which is level 0 over here. Right, so that's all well and good. And when we touch one of the portals, it's going to fade out. Right, remember we have the method on our game level, fade out right here. So this fades out the hero. Okay, and then when the hero is completely faded out, then it's going to call on done. So on done is right here. And what that does is it's just going to dispatch what level we want to go to and the transition. So hopefully we sent what level and we sent what transition. So theoretically we're going to go to level 2 and it's going to slide over into place. Okay, awesome. Transition manager here says after you slide into place, right, after everything's good, then fade in our hero. Okay, and hopefully all this will work. Let's find out. Nope, we got an error. What did we get? Get our console here. Okay, so right here, I think this is doing a flash display sprite rather than a citrus sprite, and that would be a problem, right? So get rid of that. Come down to my error here, and we want darling.display, right? Okay, so hopefully that fixed our problem. Let's give it a try. Okay, so still a slight problem. What's happening? Oh, so we need to make the hero appear on this first level, right? So all we're gonna do is just come down here and say init hero. Give him a 1. There we go. Let's see. Hey, there's my guy, and he's working. Everything's good. Jump into level 1. Oh, and another error. So that error is right here. I'm trying to access game width, but you know, it's protected, so it can't be accessed. So what I need to do is just move that up here and make it public. So just do that and that. There we go. Let's try it again. Right, so my guy's exploding onto the scene. We jump in, slides over, and boom, he fades in with an explosion. How cool is that? Alright, so if I fall off, should slide over, and I fade in with an explosion. Good. Right, so get to the end here. Hopefully I can. Boom. It faded out, and I faded in here on this side. Right, so at the end of the level it fades out, but at from here going to the level it slides over. Right, so we can try level 2 now. It slides, and then I fade in with an explosion. Okay, so probably not the cleanest way to do all this. You know, there's probably some optimization that can be done, but it gives you an idea of kind of how to start transitioning your levels. I figured out a little secret here to get ahead. If I just die on the spikes, I'll appear up over here. And it's way easier than trying to make those jumps. Oh no! But, so anyway. Oh. That's how I do my level transitions there. Okay, so we can use all kinds of different easing to transition. You can affect your hero or whatever you want. So hopefully all that made sense, and good luck trying to figure that out. I'll see you guys next time.